Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Michelle Petrides. For those who don't know me, I'm the Manager of Policy and Stakeholder Relations here at Community Living Toronto, and I will also be your MC for this morning. It's wonderful to be here in person at the Miles Nadal Jewish Community Center. Thank you for having us. This morning, we are also live on Zoom, Facebook, and Instagram. So thank you to those of us who are tuning in online. Before we begin our annual general meeting, I will go over a few housekeeping items. Restrooms are located outside the door and to your right. Refreshments are available following the meeting. We kindly ask that you do not bring food or drink to your seats in the theater. For those joining via Zoom, we ask that you please stay on mute. And please note that we are not using the Zoom Q&A function this morning, so please only use the chat function. To vote, you must be a voting member of Community Living Toronto. If you are here in person, voting paddles were given to voting members when they arrived this morning. And to vote in person, members will need to raise their paddles to favor or oppose a motion. To move or second motions, voting members will need to stand or make themselves known however they're able and state their name clearly for the minutes. For voting members via Zoom, please type in your full name using the chat function to move and second motions on your screen. To favor or oppose motions via Zoom, voting members will cast their vote by typing their full name into the chat function. And please let Julia Solani know if you are experiencing any technical issues. For our agenda this morning, we'll begin with the call to order, welcome, and introductory remarks, and we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the annual general meeting of September 21st, 2021. Then we'll cover the approval of actions of Board of Directors during 2021 to 2022, and then the Governance Committee report, followed by Community Living Toronto's update for 2021-22 from our Board Chair and CEO, and the Treasurer's report, approval of audited financial statements, and appointment of auditors. We'll end with the recognition of board members and adjourn. I'd now like to welcome Susan Silma, Chair of the Board of Directors, to the podium to begin our annual meeting.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everybody. I'm Susan Silma, the Chair of the Board of Directors of Community Living Toronto. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our 74th annual general meeting, and we thank you for joining us this morning. Let's begin by acknowledging that the land we're meeting on this morning is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. I'd like to recognize the many friends and partners we have with us today. Joining us this morning are CLTO influencers, a group of people who have a developmental disability and lots of abilities who are working to raise awareness and create positive change in their communities and beyond. Individuals and families supported by Community Living Toronto. Members of our organization and representatives from other developmental services agencies in Toronto and across the province, Community Living Ontario, and OASIS. Members of our Patrons Council, past board chairs of Community Living Toronto, and the current members of our Board of Directors. Guests from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, and our colleagues from CUPE Local 2191, as well as all Community Living Toronto staff and the senior leadership team. We value each of you and know that our collaborations have helped us better support and serve our communities. We're grateful to Minister Marilee Fullerton for sending us a warm video welcome for our annual meeting this morning. Please join me as we watch the greeting.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak with you today and be part of Community Living Toronto's annual meeting. I'd like to begin by taking this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude for annual meeting. For almost 75 years, representation has been making Toronto stronger and
Lovely, thank you. Can you hear me? Did we have sound for the video, by the way? We were good? Perfect, thank you. So this morning at the meeting, members of Community Living Toronto will be asked to approve articles of amendment and new bylaws, elect members of the board of directors, and appoint auditors for the corporation. You will also hear a report from our treasurer, Susan McCloy, on our financial status. Following the report, we'll seek approval of the financial statements. The annual report was provided in the package that was emailed or mailed to you and is also available digitally on the Community Living Toronto website. The annual report theme is Growth Through Adversity, a year of transformation and learning. This morning, Brad and I will share with you details on some of the major projects and achievements of our staff, volunteers, and partners. Extra copies of all reports and minutes are available through the executive office by contacting Executive Coordinator Kathy Brennan at 437-929-2833 or kathy.brennan@cltoronto.ca. Now on to the business portion of the meeting. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of last year's annual general meeting on September 21st, 2021. The minutes were included in the package sent to all voting members. As a reminder, only voting members may vote on motions. I'll read a motion to approve these minutes. It's recommended that the minutes of the 73rd annual general meeting of Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 be approved. May I ask for a mover and seconder to please stand and state your name clearly or type your name into the chat for the record? I see Laura Parsonson. Yep, it is moving. May we have a seconder, please? This hybrid stuff is still a little clunky, huh? Sorry, who? Edward Lau is seconding. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? The machine is calculating. Motion carried. Thank you. Now on to the approval of actions of the board of directors during last year. During the past year, your board of directors convened 8 times virtually and once in a hybrid meeting. We believe that the business conducted and the decisions made during those meetings were completed in the best interests of Community Living Toronto and its members. If you wish to examine the official signed minutes of the board of directors meetings, they're available through contacting Kathy Brennan in the executive office. I'll now read the motion. It's recommended that the actions of the board of directors of Community Living Toronto for 21-22 be approved. May I ask for a mover and seconder to please stand and state your name clearly or type your name into the chat for the record.
Also move Donald Hale.
Thank you, Donald Hale, moving. And a seconder?
Nick McCray.
Thank you, Nick McCray, seconding. Any discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. I'll now ask Victor Figueiredo, Chair of the Governance Committee of the Board, to present the report from that committee.
Thanks, Susan. Over the last year, the Governance Committee of CLTO worked to review our bylaws and our articles of incorporation, formerly known as letters patent, in order to comply with the new Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, known as ONCA, which came into effect in October 2021. As a result, we have updated, simplified, and modernized our bylaws and will file articles of amendment with the Ontario Ministry of Government and Consumer Services following the annual general meeting. 2 key changes are as follows. We changed the number of board of directors, all of whom are usually elected, to be in the range from 9 to 13. There's now only one class of member who will be accepted into the corporation as determined by the board. Now for a motion to approve the revised bylaws and articles of amendment, which were included in your package. I move that the revised bylaws and articles of amendment of the corporation be approved as circulated.
May I ask for a seconder to please stand and state your name clearly or type your name into the chat for the record? John Robinson, seconding. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carried.
We will now move into the election and re-election of board members for 2022 to 2023. The governance committee of the board, which has representation from both the board and the influencer community, works throughout the year to find candidates who will continue to bring a diverse range of knowledge, skills, thought, lived experience, and community involvement to the Board of Community Living Toronto and its committees. Thank you to all members of the governance committee for your commitment and hard work over the last year. Before proceeding to the election portion of the meeting, I'd like to take a moment to recognize those board members whose terms have not yet expired and who will continue to serve on the board this coming year. Michael Douglas, Stephanie Gower, Emery Gilbert, Donald Hale, Don Logie, Susan McCloy, and Valerie Pitcher. These directors all share a deep commitment to the community living cause and bring a wealth of know-how, skills, and lived experiences to the board table. This year, there's one returning director, Laura Parsonson, whose current term has ended and who has been nominated to stand for re-election. The governance committee is recommending that Laura be approved for a new 3-year term, which will take her from 2022 to 2025. In addition, the governance committee is recommending that the term of Susan Silma be extended for 2 years, 2022 to 2024, and that the term of Nelson Raposo be extended for 1 year, 2022 to 2023. Edward Lau will be retiring from the board after serving as a director for 9 years. This vacancy, in addition to 2 other vacancies created with the increase in size of the board through the articles of amendment, will be filled by the following nominees: Harvey Cooper, Jennifer Pereira, and Geeta Murthy. Their biographies were included in the nominations report in the meeting package. We are grateful to them for accepting our nomination, and the governance committee is recommending that each of them be approved for a 3-year term. I will now put forward a motion that reflects these recommendations. I move that Laura Parsonson, Harvey Cooper, Jennifer Pereira, and Geeta Murthy be elected for a 3-year term, 2022 to 2025, on the Community Living Toronto's Board of Directors, and that the term of Susan Silma be extended for 2 years, 2022 to 2024, and the term of Nelson Raposo be extended for 1 year, 2022 to 2023.
May I ask for a seconder to please stand and state your name clearly or type your name into the chat for the record? Thank you. Stephanie Gower, seconding. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Victor, and thank you to the members of the governance committee for all your hard work over the past year. You've really advanced the organization's governance framework. On a personal note, Victor is completing his time on the board and board committees. We have benefited immensely from his dedication to this organization and the people we support. Lovely pictures. Victor always centers the voice of the people we support, ensuring that their rights, choices, opinions, and needs inform all our work. As past chair of the board of directors, treasurer, chair of the governance committee, and member of the board's finance and audit committee, we thank you for all that you've done. I actually don't remember the board without Victor, but I'm confident that we will continue to see Victor and his family at Community Living Toronto events, and I'll look forward to it. Victor, we've sent you a gift as a thank you for the time and energy you've invested in moving forward the mission and vision of Community Living Toronto. We'll miss you.
Thank you.
As mentioned, Edward Lau will also be retiring from our board this year. Edward has made significant contributions to the organization over the past decade. He's been an active participant at board meetings where I always valued his very thoughtful perspective. More recently, he's also served on our governance committee and the finance and audit committee. We're pleased that Edward has agreed to continue his volunteer commitment with us by remaining on those two committees. Edward, thank you for your service on the board and for your continued involvement with Community Living Toronto. Edward, we've sent a gift thanking you for your steadfast commitment to Community Living Toronto over the past decade. I would now like to ask Susan McCloy to deliver the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Susan. The annual meeting package that was sent to each member of Community Living Toronto included an overview of the financial report. The package also included a copy of the financial statements and the auditor's report for the year ended March 31st, 2022. Audited and signed financial statements are also available upon request through the Community Living Toronto Executive Office. Again, this year, we have prudently and efficiently managed our funding from various sources. While navigating incredible change and the demands of the pandemic, Community Living Toronto has continued to support children, youth, and adults who have an intellectual disability in a fiscally sound way. Additional financial support was provided by our various funders this year to address pandemic challenges, which helped keep Community Living Toronto's finances on track. The Ontario Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services provided pandemic-specific supports, including over $1 million in residential relief funds and nearly $6 million in funding that translated to $3 per hour wage enhancement for our frontline staff. We're grateful for the additional funding provided by the ministry, which has ensured that our staff are recognized for their dedication to the people we support and our community. We're thankful to the federal government for their fiscal support of over $1 million, helping to support increases in staffing, virtual programming, Shadow Lake, and other programs. We completed a sale on the property of Simpson Avenue and are using the proceeds to renovate and remodel our Sibley Avenue location. Our total revenue was $106.2 million, with details provided in our annual report. Approximately 80% of the revenue was from the Ontario Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. The balance came from important partners, including the City of Toronto and the United Way of Greater Toronto, as well as donations, fee-for-service programs, entrepreneurial ventures, and a gain on the sale of capital assets. Total expenses were at $104 million. We're pleased to see positive operating results while continuing to provide the highest quality of services and supports to the over 4,000 people who have an intellectual disability and their families. Financial results for Community Living Toronto are prepared by management and fairly presented in accordance with Chartered Professional Accountant Practice Guidelines. These financial results have been audited by our external auditors at KPMG. I'd like to thank Chief Financial Officer Betty Yam and her team for all their work and for making my job as treasurer run smoothly. If you have any questions, Betty or I would be happy to respond. I will now put forward two motions. One to approve the financial statements and the second to approve the appointment of the auditors for the coming year. I move that the audited financial statements of Community Living Toronto for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2022 be approved.
May I ask for a seconder to please stand and state your name clearly or type your name into the chat for the record? Thank you, Emery Gilbert seconds. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
I further move that the firm of KPMG be reappointed as auditors for Community Living Toronto for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023.
May I ask for a seconder to please stand and state your name clearly or type your name into the chat for the record? John Robinson, thank you, seconding. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Thank you. Those opposed? Motion carried. Susan, on behalf of the members of Community Living Toronto, I thank you for your report. Your dedication is greatly appreciated. Now turning to our update on activities for 2021-2022. The PR, marketing, and communications team at Community Living Toronto have once again produced an engaging and lively annual report, which showcases some of our activities and achievements over the past year. I would encourage you to review the report. It has many pictures and will provide an enjoyable read. I was also pleased that the team organizing this meeting was able to share some of the pictures in the slideshow going on screen and over my head. So thank you for that. As a leader in the developmental services sector, Community Living Toronto is proud of what we do, providing relevant, innovative, and accessible services while advocating for the needs of people who have an intellectual disability. Our board and its committees are supported by a dedicated and talented group of volunteers who devote close to 4,500 hours a year to the governance of Community Living Toronto. Over the past year, Community Living Toronto has grown and evolved as a result of our pandemic experiences. Our organization has learned valuable lessons and found innovative solutions to create safe, individualized spaces for people to live, work, learn, and play. Community Living Toronto could not have accomplished all we have without our outstanding staff. The team continued to inspire us by dedicating themselves to the people we support and their families through another difficult year. We continue to have a strong relationship with CUPE Local 2191 to meet the changing needs of the community we support. Thank you to our union partners for your guidance. Our volunteers and members generously donated technology, activities, funds, and time to support Community Living Toronto during the year. We're so grateful to these valued members of our community. We would also like to thank Minister Marilee Fullerton and our partners at the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services for their ongoing support. The video welcome was especially nice. We're truly grateful to the province, which made the $3 per hour DSW and PSW wage enhancement permanent. We also extend deep thanks to our leadership team and frontline staff for going above and beyond to support our community with dedication and thoughtful care. Thank you. This year, our organization's core values have expanded to include inclusion, choice, and diversity. These values aim to promote respect, equity, and belonging for all. The values of inclusion, choice, and diversity reflect our commitment to embed those principles at the core of Community Living Toronto's culture. We continued on our plan to reopen programs and our offices safely and gradually with guidance from the province and public health. We restarted in-person respite and community participation supports, formerly called day supports, on a small scale in the fall of 2021, supporting small groups at a few sites across the city. The initial focus was on families and individuals who were not in our supported living program or were not able to access supports during the pandemic. Looking forward, we plan to increase the number of groups and sites so we can welcome more people into our programs. As always, affordable housing remains a priority. We are progressing our plans to redevelop Community Living Toronto's Lawson site into a new inclusive community of hundreds of market price and affordable units. You'll hear more details about our housing developments in Brad's update. 2022-23 will be full of exciting celebrations. Our biannual Community Rocks fundraiser will be happening next November, 2023. We can't wait to see you all there. Also coming up next year is our 75th anniversary, a time of great reflection and celebration for all that we have accomplished over the years. We will be sharing lots of information in the lead up, so stay tuned. On a personal note, this will be my last annual meeting as chair of the board. I've had the privilege of serving as chair for 3 years. At the end of the usual 2-year term, the board asked me to continue in the role given the continuing pandemic. In thinking about it, Brad reminded me recently that I once said to him that the first 2 years of my term as chair were not the term I was expecting. I'd been expecting to host some receptions and other events to recognize volunteers and staff at various hotels and to chair board meetings around the boardroom table at 20 Spadina. It didn't work out that way. Instead, in light of the pandemic, I was happy to roll up my sleeves and had the privilege of working closely with Brad and the leadership team to help figure out how to respond to the many and totally unprecedented challenges of different stages of the pandemic. I saw firsthand the exceptional dedication of our wonderful staff and realized how lucky we are to have them. They worked tirelessly to support the individuals in our care. I am both proud and in awe of them. I will also call out the resilience of the people we support. It's fantastic. There were, however, the calls from Brad sharing news of COVID illnesses and even deaths in our community. I can't help but remember that it was a very difficult time for the organization, our staff, and the people we support. The new virtual world also changed how we held board meetings. For most of my term, the board met virtually. We learned how to navigate Teams and Zoom, how to raise virtual hands, and have effective conversations sitting in our respective living rooms. I finally met a few of our board members for the very first time this past June when we held our first hybrid meeting. I'm proud and grateful for all the organization has accomplished, especially in the face of the unique challenges presented through the pandemic. I wanted to express my sincere thanks to Community Living Toronto staff. You are all my heroes. You're amazing. To the leadership team, all of you, you have done an incredible job guiding the ship through the dark days of the pandemic. Thank you. And Brad, I wanted to thank you personally, not just for all you do for the organization as CEO, but because I've really enjoyed our working relationship. So thank you. Before I conclude this morning, I want to highlight that the board members, as well as the committees of the board, are a really critical part of Community Living Toronto. Members of the board committees include a dedicated group of volunteers, family, and community members. I want to acknowledge their combined determination, enthusiasm, and commitment to the mission and vision of Community Living Toronto. With that, I'll now turn it over to Brad to say a few words about our strategic service and program directions.
Thank you, Susan. So welcome. It's nice to see some people in person for the first time. It's been a 2-year break since we had our last in-person AGM. And we've been through a lot since then. We are a different organization than we were 2 years ago. And as we continue to emerge from the pandemic and adjust to life as we come out the other side of it, I think we're getting a different understanding of what risk is and what illness is and how we all work together. I just want to make sure that as we come out of this and we get it back into our busy pace of lives, that we as staff and volunteers and friends and colleagues of Community Living Toronto continue to care for each other, and that we give each other the space we need to heal from what we've been through in the last couple of years and also to recover. We are also adjusting to a new way of living, to remembering what we have lost, to what we have learned, and as we work together to figure out where we go next as an organization. I personally, in the last couple of years, have valued how our Community Living Toronto family, our volunteers, supporters, and friends came together in our time truly of greatest need. We did our best and we rose to the challenge. As you review our annual report, please note the progress that we have made, even during a pretty challenging time. I think this speaks directly to the dedication and resilience and professionalism, as well as the compassion of all of our staff and volunteers, board and leadership at Community Living Toronto. I want to take a few minutes, if you'll indulge me, to highlight a couple of the things that we've made significant progress on that I think we all should be proud of. So our regional structure has served us well for many years. We had 4 regions, then we had 3. But in October, we moved to a structure that was based on the services we provide as opposed to where they were provided. So we've gone to supported living, specialized resources, and community participation supports and respite. We also created a new position, Senior Director of Operations, to help pull it all together. Our regional councils are our community councils and continue to be critical in how we relate to each of our communities. This new way of organizing ourselves and our work will allow us to be more responsive for the people we support and prepare for our future. Employment, lots of change happening in employment in Ontario, and we've been preparing for a couple of years. Most recently with a skills development grant from the Ministry of Labor. We have partnered with an energetic and creative organization in Nova Scotia called Placemaking for Good, and developed a digital platform called myjobmatch.ca. As the job market evolves and as employers' needs are evolved, as are the needs of employees and those seeking employment, this platform will allow people with a developmental disability and others to pull together several part-time jobs into more of a full-time job, which kind of reflects the way our economy is going. So stay tuned for more on myjobmatch.ca. Place to live. So after many years of housing drought, we are in the midst of a surge of new housing, in large part spurred by the National Housing Strategy, as well as the leadership of Mayor Tory and the City of Toronto. We are aggressively pursuing housing options all across the city, beginning with Dan Leckie Way, down by the Rogers Center 10 years ago, and then the West Donlands. We have continued to develop new partnerships. We've done Madison View, we have Tippett, which has 2 phases that we're part of, Birchmount Green in Scarborough, Mervis Village, Victoria Park, and Weston Road. We have more than 80 units of housing coming available to us over the next number of years, and continue to pursue, perhaps too many, but we're continuing to pursue many options that come our way. As Susan mentioned, we've made a lot of progress on our Lawson project. And we really see this Lawson development, which will be a number of condominium buildings and a rental building that will be run by CLTO, as a standard and an example globally, internationally, around how inclusive communities can be built. Beyond just housing, we've gone through in the last number of years, we've updated a lot of our community locations. So we've got beautiful spaces around the city at Foster's Connection, which is Main and Gerrard, the East Mall in Etobicoke. We've newly renovated our site on Advance Road, as well as our North York office. We've got smaller footprints with a better use of space that are really a pleasure to be in. We have not been able to do open houses and welcomes that we would have and ribbon cuttings, but we will over the next number of months as things continue to open up, welcome people back in to those spaces more broadly. So community participation supports or day supports. I would say one of the biggest impacts of COVID, and we recognize this, has been the reduction of day supports and the pivot to online and smaller group activities. Over the past 6 months, we've begun opening smaller group activities across the city and will continue to do so safely and cooperatively. In the last year, currently, we have about 96 people participating virtually still. And we have about 129 people that are coming into our community-based locations. That number will continue to grow, and there's people going back and forth between the two. We've also undertaken an ambitious project to look at how we deliver day supports. Traditionally, our day supports required those who wanted to use our service to adapt what we were offering. What time, what location, and what activities. That needs to change. What we've endeavored to do is to start talking with individuals and family about how our community participation supports can better meet your needs. That sort of involves changing from what we need to what you need and want. That work will continue until we get it right. Our specialized services team has done an amazing job this year adding social work. We've provided consultation to both our agency internally and externally, and increased our specialization in mental health. We merged our clinical disciplines into an interdisciplinary review team that has been just set the bar for a new level of service for us. With our community supports and adult protective service workers who've worked so hard through the pandemic to make sure that people were connected and safe and had food. We've helped people find new housing and added facilitators to help enable that. Our family support coordinators have stayed in touch with families throughout. And our family support coordinators are also participating with Ontario's new autism program, urgent response mechanism that's been hosted at Surrey Place. As far as our staff group and our community, anti-racism, equity, diversity, and inclusion, we've continued that work. This is a joint effort with our union, CUPE, Local 2191, and is really helping us get a better understanding of who we are, what we do well, and what we need to do better. Each of us has a role to play, and we are committed to making Community Living Toronto a welcoming, inclusive employer that represents our community more fully. We are also looking into our role at reconciliation. It's an interesting piece for us because many individuals that we support and our sector has a history of institutionalizing people. So there are some symmetries that we have with our Aboriginal communities, and we've done a lot of work. There's a lot of things we have to keep doing. We have to keep listening and learning and take action that will make us better and that will make us stronger. Something new we've started in the last little bit too is international community to community relationships. With all of the challenges that we have here, it's sometimes easy to forget that many in other parts of the world struggle in ways that are difficult for us to relate to. We've established a few community to community relationships. In Alexandria, Egypt, for example, we're supporting a self-advocates group as they gather their people together and figure out how to advocate for the presence of people with disabilities in their community. In Kenya, we're working with local coffee growers to develop a social enterprise to support young people and women. The unemployment rate around that group in Kenya is north of 60%. And we're helping young people and women in that country get work by selling great coffee here and supplying it through our coffee locations that we're setting up around the city. In India, we've continued our partnership with Latika Roy Foundation, which has led to a partnership with the Indo-Canadian Autism Network. For the first time this past week, we were able to access psychiatric services and consultations from India for people that are receiving service here, overseen by a psychiatrist based out of British Columbia. This international work is truly paying us dividends. And it is a reminder to how much abundance, relatively speaking, we have in Ontario. I can't say enough about United Way. We did a spectacular campaign that we're about to embark on again in a few weeks. We met and exceeded our $50,000 threshold, and the United Way has been a great partner throughout COVID, pulling people together, continuing to give cost of living increases to its funding. I can't say enough. Our advocacy work has been really successful this year. Our influencers, that a lot of work was done through the pandemic, had their first presentation at the Community Living Ontario conference this week. 6 group of exceptional people from the community who are sharing their passion for advocacy. Shadow Lake continued to run. We had 286 guests there this past summer. Great staff, and we had to close a week, pivoted to virtual, and then reopened again. Really nimble and fantastic work. We also got accredited this year. Way to go. I will say in the second year of the pandemic, Omicron really hit us hard. So beginning around Christmas into about March, we were really close to the edge in terms of finding staff, supporting the individuals that we support, but we made it through. One of the ways we did that was by hosting more than 20 bi-weekly family and friends webinars that will be returning again soon to a computer screen near you. I will say I mentioned advocacy with our influencers. I just want to highlight 2 things. One, just because I've got some people here that I'll highlight. You may have noticed on Labor Day, there was an article in the Toronto Star about a family from Kingston. The father's involved with our organization a little bit, and their inability to access family managed home care for their daughter when she became an adult. The Ministry of Health prevented that. The parents would have had to become a guardian. Through the advocacy work of the sector, but in particular, Chris Beasley, who's in our audience here today with Community Living Ontario, and Brendan Pooran and Pooran Law, The province who had been doing sort of patient but persistent advocacy for 3 to 5 years or more. The province last week reversed that decision. This young lady does not have to give up her rights. She can still make her own decisions and receive the family care. Real success in advocacy, and shows the efforts that need to go into this sometime. Our other big win was the pandemic pay, which started as pandemic pay, evolved to temporary wage enhancement, and finally landed most recently in the provincial budget as permanent wage enhancement. This was so deserved for our workforce. And the pandemic definitely proved that our staff are essential in the province, and our workforce rose to that expectation. I will also, just to sort of sum up and say that QP Local 2191 has been a strong partner throughout in a number of our endeavors. We value their leadership. Through this past year and as we go forward, and consider them such an important part of what we do. Finally, just to conclude, I'd like to recognize the individuals and families who depend upon us from across the city. We know that the last 2 years have been a challenge. We have tried our best to support you. Sometimes we have succeeded, other times we have come up short. But please know that as we emerge from a difficult and historic pandemic, that we are committed to our mission of building communities where everyone belongs, where everyone is valued. We'll continue to try and meet your expectations. Finally, Susan, this is your last time as chair. And as you said, it was not exactly the turn you were expecting, but nonetheless, I cannot imagine, or I've been so grateful to have gone through this pandemic working with you. You've been generous with your time. Susan's a corporate lawyer by training and has a busy job. She was also managing through COVID as well. We would often squeeze in on a Friday afternoon, 15 minutes when she had a gap in her schedule to kind of connect around some issues. She's been thoughtful. She asks great questions. She challenges us appropriately. She's made us a stronger organization. You've worked to professionalize the board and bring us to where we are now. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. Small token of our appreciation. We have a tradition here of giving a nice pen in recognition. So as you write, do you still write, or mostly computers? There you go. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
That was very kind, Brad. Thank you very much. And thank you for the pen. I think you left me on the wrong page here, though. There we go. Okay, back to it. Thank you so much. That was so nice. So I think we're done. Community Living Toronto would like to thank the organizers of this meeting and everyone who joined us. By the way, fantastic organizational effort. The whole team pulled it together seamlessly, despite us, actually. So thank you so much. And of course, thank you to all the members and staff who helped to make this a great annual meeting. This brings the meeting to a close, although I do need one more motion. It's recommended that the 74th annual general meeting of Community Living Toronto be adjourned. One more time. May I ask for a mover and seconder to please stand and state your name clearly, or type your name into the chat for the record. Val Pichet moving. May I have a seconder, please? I'm sorry, who? Valerie Boyle seconding. I'm not going to ask if there's any discussion, I think. Those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Thank you so much to all of you for being a part of our annual general meeting. Take care, stay safe.